YouTube, on Facebook, on Zoom. The program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, on Tuesday. Today is the 18th of July, 2023. Very soon, in less than a week, inshallah, I'll be making the magic 5-0, getting to 50 years of age. And you can see the gray. Alhamdulillah, a lot is going into that process. Well, after nearly 30 years practicing journalism, I started having, a new feeling of a new career. And 5 years ago, I embarked on a journey of getting into farming. While I had a lot of it in my head, I had not practically done it. And it's been a journey of sorts. I'm using the word reservedly, conversion therapy to get me ready to become a farmer from being the journalist. But many years of celebratory journalism in which I managed, alhamdulillah, to traverse the world of Africa's 54 countries. I've been to 36, of Europe's several countries I've been to 15 and still counting. And to the Americas, the United States, in South America, in Mexico and Brazil. And I hope that I'll be able to expand even much further. But it's been a journey in itself, one that I'm very proud of. And one of the stories, actually, it's with journalism, it's the feeling of what you're able to do, how you are able to change people's lives. This is one story I just wanted us to start having a conversation over tonight. It's the story that I was the first broadcast journalist to do this story. And from my story, which went viral online, many people came to follow up, people coming from as far as Russia, China, Brazil, India, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan have come to follow up on this story. And this lady has never stopped praising me. I fear the praise, but alhamdulillah, through my story, I was able to open up ways that many people came now to find out what seemed like an impossible story. I'd like you to have a look at that, but just to say, I'm very proud that 6 years ago, I opened up this story and it opened up a whole new chapter for this lady. She was 39 then, had 44 live births, and by the time I went to visit her, she had only 40 children because 4 had died along the way. It's a story that is unbelievable, and it was the most fertile, Uganda's most fertile woman, and probably it was even actually going to the levels of the world. I hear the Guinness Book of Records tried to reach out to her, and the Ugandan government, in some ways, through especially the Ministry of Health, had raised doubts about the kids, and therefore that sort of got in the way of it. But then came another woman who actually performed or had more kids than she has. But I'm very proud that I was the person who opened up this story, and through that story, alhamdulillah, the world got to know about this. Well, Isma, if we can just have a look at this story, praising and looking at a career that I've had to live after 33 years. The credit doesn't look very good, but I think we can just about sustain. Please watch.
Welcome to Kassim, Mukono district in central Uganda. Here, Mariam Nabatanzi is like any other woman if you walked past her. But get to her home and you may be forgiven for thinking this is the boarding section of a school. Nabatanzi is 39 years old and has mothered 44 children already. 38 are alive today. You heard right, 44 children, all delivered normally. Everything here is done massively with near military precision. 22 kilograms of maize or corn flour, 7 kilograms of beans, 2.5 kilograms of sugar. That's the daily feed for this humongous family. I lost count of how many breads they ate.
I'm in the middle of a huge operation, feeding operation. It's like a military operation. Feeding bread and porridge, that is for breakfast, to 24 kids out of the 38. It's just unbelievable. I can't tell who is who. I just wonder how the mom does it. They've just finished now, just been serving bread and porridge, and some guys were coming back for a second take. Their mom could recognize and say, you just come for a double, but some would actually get away with it. It's quite an interesting, extraordinary family, I should say.
Question is, how did this all begin for Nabatanzi? First, she was married off too young, aged 13, and started having children immediately.
In my heart, I wish to have 6 children. I gave birth 4 times, and on each occasion, I had twins. 8 children were more than what I had bargained for. I went to hospital to ask the doctors to stop me from having babies. The doctors carried out tests and said it would be risking my life if they stopped me. I was too fertile to stop. I went back home and conceived quintuplets. 5 children at once and then 2 times more. With 23 kids, I thought it was too much and I went back to hospital, but the doctors said they couldn't stop me without risking death. I was pretty healthy, having natural births.
Gynecologists say it's possible to be this fertile, although not commonplace. But once you have these many children, my question then is, how hard is it to name these children? We both break into a bout of laughter.
We use different names. First, when I started having twins, I bought a book of names. So I'd pick names from there. Then my husband is Catholic and I'm Muslim. So don't be surprised to see a Mohammed, then a Dennis. We'd pick from each side. Then we looked for ancestral names. When the numbers got bigger, I began picking names of my favorite movies, especially Nollywood. I've got Ciara's, Precious Ozokwa, Desmond Elliot, Genevieve Naji, and so on.
When you hear this kind of story, you must be wondering where the man responsible for all this procreation is. Well, when I posed this question, Mariam's lead face suddenly turned sad.
I have had to put up with a lot. He's tortured me so much. He abused me, beat me up sometimes, and threatened to kill me once. He pays no school fees, nor does he even know what we survive on. Unashamedly, he comes and eats what he didn't leave home. He's not part of these children's lives. Where we are now, I bought with my own money and from doing little jobs here and there. He was in utter shock to learn I'd bought and built this place.
Her biggest challenge is looking after these children with an absentee father, foremost of which is school fees and feeding the children. 14 of her children are in primary school, where she has to pay more than 5 million shillings in school dues per term. This is equivalent to around $1,500. Another 10 children are in secondary school. Some have been forced to drop out of school as the bill spirals out of control. Her dream is to educate all her children so that they may get a better life, not like what she's been through. To fund all this, she learned many skills including cake making, bricklaying, decorations, tailoring, cooking, and herbal medicine. She hates having to beg. There is no end to Mariam Nabatanzi's story. It's powerful, it's captivating. Yet somehow, I have to find a way to say goodbye. So what's her message?
Abazadde abakyayina emitima egitunda abaana baabwe bakikomye.
My message is mainly to parents. Stop selling your children through early marriages. We suffer too much while losing out on parental love that can never be recovered. Secondly, to the mothers, do not desert your children as you walk out of marriage. Whatever the case, stick to and with your children. I strongly feel that had my mother not left me, my father would not have married me off young. To the men, please shoulder your responsibilities. Don't leave it to the women. A man puts up a shop for you and they imagine all is sorted. No buying anything anymore at home. You forced us to become like men. Reclaim your status as men. Show us love and let us do our responsibilities.
It's hard to hold back my own tears knowing so many examples of what she's referring to. Mariam only sleeps for a maximum of 5 hours a day. The rest of her day is dedicated to the children. It would have been good to know what her neighbors make of her, but time wasn't on my side. But don't be surprised if she's declared the woman with the most number of children in the world from one man. Kassim Kayira, Azam News, Kasau, Uganda.
Thank you very much, Isma. That is one of the stories that make me feel very proud. Alhamdulillah, with this story, I was the first journalist, like I said, if you've just joined us, to first broadcast journalist, because the first journalist to discover this woman was a Daily Monitor journalist called Rugaju. His story was not believed and it was just in the back pages. I saw this and I thought I'll go and explore, and became the first broadcast journalist to sort of put the story out. And once we put the story out, it just went viral. Go on YouTube and just see how many views it had. immediately started getting attractions, and I started receiving a lot of phone calls and messages, and people asking how they could get in touch. I ended up getting support for this woman initially, especially through the late Honorable Minister Ali Kirunda HIJJA, who made sure that for every month this lady was receiving 100 kilograms of posho, of maize meal, 100 kilograms of sugar, 100 kilograms of rice. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept his help. But it was following up on this story that it started attracting attention. Later on, a group from UK got very interested. We went to school. We did another story that was following up on this. She had 18 children in one school, in a primary school, 18 kids in a primary school. So instead of being part of the register in which they would be, they were devoted to their own register. They had one register where all the children belonging to this woman, Narongo, were registered. So they would just do their register through their own book instead of being part of the classroom registers. But that's not the topic tonight. The reason I brought this is because for nearly 30 years, I was and have been a journalist working with different media houses. But inside me was this passion, the unfulfilled passion of, living on a farm, being on a farm, doing it not only, just out of love, but now taking it to another level where it would become commercial. And 5 years ago, Alhamdulillah, I took the decision, the difficult decision to sort of, end or transition into farming while keeping a leg in journalism here and there. But now I can claim to be an upcoming farmer, which meant it was a totally new area. Regardless of the passion in my head, reality on the ground was different. It just meant I had to really learn a lot of things, start from zero, be, like the student that I had to be. So the question tonight that I would like to ask you is, if you wanted to be anything, what would you want to be? Have you had to change career? And many of us have. Left Uganda, there's particular jobs that we used to look at and just felt that these were demeaning jobs. You think about cleaning, you think about plumbing or plastering or painting. These would be jobs for low people that would come and just pay little money. You come to these countries and suddenly you realize how much of a payment that does. Many converted, especially ladies, into social work and nursing, people who had not had any sciences, at least at uni, but then having to convert and come and do this, and they have excelled at it, many. So tonight I would like to hear your personal stories, because this program is about our experiences and how we build each other. And how, if, for example, you're going to advise someone, what would you tell them? How would you advise them to do? You came in as a teacher, for example, graduated as a teacher, you've ended up now being an airline pilot or engineer in the making. It would be interesting just to hear these particular courses or areas that we have crossed into that we never have been through. And we've got quite a number of, guests on tonight, people that I think will come in quite handy when it comes to, choices, career choices, and, how, and even where to start from, because sometimes you might think, well, I'm 50 now. What can I do? Is it too late for me, for example, to change career? Surprise, surprise. You might be surprised. You might just get 10 years remaining in your life, and you make the best of those 10 years through a career change. Careers actually can be a combination of several things. It might not necessarily mean you drop one career by going into another. It might be that you adopt a new career and add it to your CV, allow them to sort of work hand in hand, and that works. There are particular jobs I have not stopped feeling. You go to a garage, even booking an appointment for the garages, you are in a queue, a long queue that might, take forever. But you get to the garage, someone comes in and just changes a few bolts and here, nuts and bolts, and the next thing is they're giving you a bill that you cannot challenge. And then suddenly you realize mechanics back home, yes, you would, but there was still sort of a lowly job. Suddenly you realize, did we go to the wrong schools? Did we do the wrong courses? Those are the experiences I would like to hear from you tonight. To remind you, the program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, and we are live on 75 W Radio. We are live on Ummah Connected. We are live on Facebook, on Zoom, and on YouTube, where we are streaming live at the moment. Remember, if you miss any bit of these programs, you can just type in, go into Google, YouTube, just look for Come Let's Talk with Kassim Kayira or Umma Connected, or even just type in 75W Radio, and you'll be able to find any of the programs that you might have missed. So tonight, as usual, remember, if you're just a newbie into the program, you're maybe shy to go to the microphone, you can use the chat room, type in your message, type in your question, and we'll be able to have it as part of the discussion. But it is about your stories tonight, hearing the kind of experiences that you have gone through, careers that you've had to change. Did you end up having to touch the cow dung, you get to chicken poo just because you are embracing a new area in terms of changing career because you have found gold in that? Well, why don't I open the conversation now, and I'll come to, well, our latest Mugore in terms of graduation. I'm sure there might be others there. Let's hear your success stories. Jaden, I come to you because you are still freshly graduated. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and congratulations.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you very much for the support that I've received from various people around.
For starters, what was the course? What did you graduate in? What was the master's in?
It was a master's in social work, belated though, but alhamdulillah, I completed that master's. I'm adding on top of that to do therapy work. So I'm doing another postgraduate on top of that qualification. And inshallah, I've got one more year to go before I put on another gown.
But that's not where your educational qualifications began from. Did you have to cross, or have you always been a social worker?
No, my journey has been quite long. Before I came to the UK, I was a wildlife expert. I had qualifications in wildlife ecology, and I had postgraduates attached to that. I was a teacher, and I had certificates in computer science. So I was like across the range, but I couldn't fit in any of those roles. So I joined my brothers and became their business manager. They did imports of various things from vehicles to electronics. So I moved from that qualification to be a business manager. So it was a question of adaptation, and adaptation has been the story of my life, really.
Yes.
Adapting myself to where I saw the niche and where I would survive from. But when I came to the UK, none of those qualifications mattered. I couldn't find the relevant job, so I went into security, and I did security. Now, me as a business manager, I had because we had different sites, and I had like 6 or 7 security guards under my control. So I was like supervising them and paying their wages and instructing them on what to do. But coming to the UK, I find myself that was the job that I could fit in initially. So you can imagine.
So you already had a bit of a basis in that. You are not starting from nowhere.
Yeah, I knew the locations. I knew what the role involved. So what I would call were transferable skills, but this was theoretical. But when I started that job, it was right deep in the deep end. So your security in supermarkets, in stores, in facilities, that kind of thing. And my God, it was standing for long hours. So from being somebody who was sat behind the desk to somebody who was standing at the front door for long hours. And some of the abuse that I received while doing that job.
Did it make you question your decision to cross into that?
It made me question the decision to come in the first place. But it was paying the bills, it was giving me the food and all that, but I was not comfortable in that role. And one time I was working in London, and if I remember the shop, I think it was a Safeway supermarket. That was the, yeah. And some ladies came from Uganda, and I could hear them speaking Luganda. I didn't understand. And I kind of introduced myself to them and said, I understand that language. Okay, I can identify that language. So we turned to English and we started speaking English. And they were teachers by coincidence. And some of them knew the people that I had trained with. So I was asking, how is so and so? I'm not going to mention any names. How is so and so? Oh, he's doing fine. He's now become the head of this department. He's now become this, that kind of thing. So I questioned myself and said, am I doing the right thing here?
Yes.
And I said, no, this is not right. So I crossed over to Newcastle, and I got a job in the call center. Now, this was my computer background taking over. So they didn't recognize the certification, but I had the skills to fit into that role. So I again adapted myself to that role and was there for 13 years, doing customer service, technical work. But again, the abuse that I received there, my accent was quite heavy and broad, and talking to people who are already frustrated because either they have been overcharged or their handsets are not working or they're not receiving the service that they're paid for. So I got picked up, and again, that told me, no, this is not the right place for you. And
oh my goodness. Yes.
I thought, no, let me take this a step further. And I started doing, surprisingly, I had good qualifications in English and maths, which I could not use here. So I went back to do level 1 and level 2 in maths and English so that I could get entrance to a university.
Yeah.
This is the maths that you do in primary 7 S1.
Yes, yes.
So again, that was a frustration. That I've got the equivalent of GCSEs in maths and English, but I'm being relegated to do this maths for P6, P6, P7, S1. But I said my target is to get into that university. And alhamdulillah, I got into Northumbria to do business information, mixed with the computer work. But that was a time when computer work started moving away from the technicians. If you remember, you'd have technicians come into your home to connect. And to do connections, to download software for you. But that job suddenly dried because everybody could find that information online and do it for themselves. So again, I became redundant. And this is when somebody suggested, no, just go and do social work. That's an open niche. And you'll find your calling because you've got that nature. So I did social work and been doing it for 7 years nearly. But due to ill health, I decided to change again. So I used the skills from social work, and now I'm training to be a therapist. So this is more like a sitting job, doing therapy work.
So would you say, Jaden, with this entire journey, which looks like a lot of things that you've had to pack in there, that you have found happiness? Would you say you've found your place? Because from the experience, you're sort of saying you would be in a place, some places 10 years, 12 years, and you feel like that's not your rightful place. So would you say, as to where you are now, you feel like you've found your balance, you're in the right place?
I haven't found my balance. I've found the level where I should be at this stage, but I haven't attained the target where I wanted to be. I've always wanted to lecture in higher institutions. That has always been my goal. So developing all the way with my teaching skills, I thought I would take it to the next level and maybe do a master's, which I've done, and then go ahead and do the next level and become a lecturer at the end of it. So I've always been driven by the academic part, but Uze, age is catching up.
That's what I was beginning to worry about, whether now with this entire journey, where if you haven't found the happiness, especially considering, you know, the different tangents that you have gone touching, whether, well, if you're still persistent, I think that's a journey that never stops. I mean, I'll tell you something funny. My first degree is in education, so I'm a qualified teacher. And when I got to this country, part of me, because I was in BBC sort of part-time, I was feeling like the money wasn't enough at the time. And I thought I'll go into teaching. And therefore, I went into supply teaching because I had my qualifications. They were taken in. I mean, they were accepted. And I went into supply teaching. And one of the worst places to ever be as a person is being a supply teacher. Children or students just know, the pupils know you are coming in for one day. They will do all manner of things. And then I was in Woolwich, South London. I had a school that has now already been closed and turned into an estate. Flats, new flats have come up in the place. It was called Thomas Tallis, and it was a college there in Blackheath. Oh my God, I go into a classroom as a qualified teacher. Sometimes I would just get shifts just to go in, not necessarily to teach, but to get newly qualified teachers, and they needed to have a qualified teacher in the classroom, sort of watch how they were teaching to hold the class down. I go to this school and I'm sat at the back of the classroom, and there's this Zimbabwean teacher, Maskini, who had just come, a lady. She goes to the board to start writing. A boy goes and lifts her skirt up, and all her knickers are just disposed to the classroom. I'm unable to do anything because suddenly I realized very quickly how powerless teachers are in this country. And I have never overcome the kind of trauma that I felt, especially for the teacher, like the way she felt. I don't know if she continued with teaching, because on the day when she left, it was just disastrous. 3 days later, I come in to cover the class myself. People wake up at night to pray tahajjud, to ask Allah for Jannah, but as a supply teacher, you are praying to God for 3:15, the bell to go. That you wake up tahajjud to pray to Allah to get you to 3:15, and which is absolutely something different. 3 days later, a student comes in class with a gun and shows it to a teacher in my presence, a pistol in class. I mean, this is South London, and I was thinking, oh my God, now I have one little chance and then I'll be gone. That was in another school, I think, that has also been closed. I think it's in Erith or Bexley Heath. It was called Brownwoods. I think it's been closed as well. These were difficult schools. Suddenly I realized probably this is not the place for me. And I totally quit teaching. I hated teaching. I just went out and embarked on my journalism. I just thought I'll put all my energy there. So there's that kind of thing that sort of turns you away from a profession, but while you loved it so much, the circumstances in it do not really favor you. So have you had, when it comes to conversion, Jaden, have you found that, did it get you to question, for example, the kind of education that we get back in Uganda or in Africa in general?
I think very much so, because the education that we came with were what I would call solid education. And you'd go into a job based on the qualifications that you had. But in the UK, what matters is the soft skills, the transferable skills that you can bring into a job. Because when I was training to be a social worker, if I remember correctly, I had an engineer on the course, there was a lawyer, and then there was 2 nurses and a midwife doing the same course. So a complete range of qualifications, but all mixed to do that same course. They didn't look at how much maths you knew. Okay, it was an entrance requirement. They didn't look at how much maths you knew, how much English you knew, but the skills that you have, the people skills, the timekeeping, the time management skills, the skills for, say, communication, report writing, those kind of skills, and you'd fit in any job. But if you come with a background and say, I've got an A-level physics or an A-level maths, and you are pinning all your hopes on that, it's going to be a very tough journey for you. Because one, you'll put yourself so high, but the jobs that are available, for example, cleaning jobs and care jobs, there's nothing wrong with them, but you'll find yourself suddenly doing those jobs to survive. And if you peg your maths and English and chemistry to those jobs, I'm afraid you're going to be frustrated.
Thank you very much, Jaden. I'll just go on and with conversation continuing. 42 minutes past 8 o'clock. I'll come to Ziada Rutare in Manchester. We are talking about, upgrading or changing careers midway, coming in with your qualifications and then probably realizing, well, it might not be the place. As HIJJA Ziada, you have been very instrumental, especially in the northwest of England, with families providing guidance, but also going to your own self. When it comes to the kind of education, have you had to change career at all in the process of your being in the UK? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, good to have you back. It's been a while.
I know, yeah. I'm sorry, but life is tight. That's all I can say.
Okay, Chafa, you're saying you missed the last gentleman's name. His name is Jaden. Jaden, he's still in here. You'll be able to hear him. He's based in Newcastle. Yes, yeah.
Right.
Regarding tonight's topic, regarding career changes.
Yeah, it's a very interesting and good topic because it teaches a lot. I've learned a lot from the gentleman who has just been speaking. He's come a long way, but alhamdulillah, it's an interesting story, and anyone could love to hear his story.
From wildlife to security to
I
social
know
work,
from security, customer service, and teaching and
almost
social
starting
work.
From therapy of animals now to therapy of humans.
I know, yeah, he's done really well. He's done really well, mashallah. God is good, yeah. Alhamdulillah.
What's your own experience? Did you have to change career, or how you came is how you maintain?
Actually, I've moved places myself as well to come to a conclusion of where I am now.
Right.
And because I came to the UK in a banking and economic sector, right, where I had graduated from India in that area. And then when I came to the UK, I came as a student to do my master's. But then things didn't work out the way they were supposed to be because of funding. I didn't have enough funds to pursue my master's. So I went from places to places. That's all I can say. While studying in these small colleges, I did business administration just for visa renewal. Business administration, and then I did IT. I did I think it was a Microsoft certified professional course and some other small courses. But then eventually I put myself together. That was the time when I was working and putting funds together. And then I was doing cleaning as a student, and then I was doing care work. And then I worked in supermarkets as a customer service at the tills. I think it's called a teller or something. And then eventually I managed to raise the funds. And I said, no, I need to get what I had come for, because that was my aim. I was doing all that to raise the money to be able to pay the fees as an international student. Yes. And then eventually I went for a master's. And I think the master's I had originally come for is what I wanted, and I'm glad it's what I got. But it was because I got some career guidance from my elder brothers. Right. So I was in the same line. Initially, what I wanted, I aimed for, is what I got in the end.
Get it. All right. Well, that's
Yeah.
kind of lucky because many people now get detracted along the way. Like I said, I don't know whether you had joined by then, but
Yeah.
the way I've transformed now from a journalist now crossing into farming, where I've had
I
to
know, yeah.
like
Yeah.
start from zero, because I mean, it's just not farming the way people just know about holding a hoe. This was like practically going into the science of it, into the mathematics of it, into the commerce of it. And
Wow.
I just had to forget, actually, it's about unlearning everything else and just concentrating to start here. Sitting on a tractor, starting the engine, and then it's like you're a student from zero. And then you
Yeah.
start seeing, but also the fact that now you end up having to go and learn from people that normally you would have undermined. I don't know if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Because like
The farming, yeah, the
you've
people at the
spoken
farms
about
and stuff
working
like
in
that.
care or
Yeah.
security. There's a time I went to work in council environmental services, and I could see the guy that is my supervisor. I look at the person, and these countries just make you forget everything. Like you would have to put all your qualifications to the side and just make sure one you want to survive. Therefore, if
Yeah.
it's about the money, you forget you and all of that. You concentrate on what you have at the moment. But I've realized how much knowledge there is out there, and the practical knowledge, because there are particular things like plasterers, like people would come, and builders back home, bricklayers. These are jobs that, but you come here and then suddenly you realize how important these courses are in ways that, you would easily have missed if you didn't understand. Now, I even start questioning the whole education system, whether, because you go to countries like Germany, and Germany, their concentration is on vocational studies. So a joiner, a carpenter, a plumber, these are jobs, a mechanic, you find them being serious jobs like training in Germany. People come out and they have particular qualifications. And even here, you just look in and you see how much people's lives have changed. You just see, to get a person to come and do home improvement now, you see how much money you pay to a guy just like this. Suddenly now you start questioning whether the kind of education he had received actually was the right education. But I think that's the conversation. I think that's the very reason we are having the conversation tonight. I see new faces or new names here. Banji, Bridget, I'll come to you later to hear your own story. There must be something that really attracted you to the conversation tonight. Why don't I go to Mustafa Kawoya as well in Manchester? Wara Mustafa, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome to the conversation tonight. Thanks for being part of the conversation. You are one of the people that I've found quite interesting, because I don't know how you ended up in aeronautic engineering. I don't know whether that is where you began your journey from.
Well, I started my education in Uganda as I studied industrial and fine arts. It used to be called at the time.
Industrial fine arts,
okay.
Yes.
Industrial and fine arts.
Right.
Kayira University. I didn't like it. I was forced to do it by my father and HIJJA. I will never forget the two of them, the duo.
Yeah.
Personally, I wanted to do law, but then Chanjo insisted that I needed to do a course where I would have the capacity to employ myself. I missed the entire first semester. There used to be terms at the time. There used to be 3 terms a year. Thinking about it, but then I realized I didn't have an option, so I went in for it. When I completed, I worked for Peacock Paints as their resident fine arts for some time, and I realized that it's not what I wanted to do. So I went back, did a PGDE, taught for some time, while on the side I used to do graphics, or on NASA Road.
The HIJJA aspect now.
Yeah, now came in, but I still didn't like it. I genuinely did not. I hated it.
Yes.
So I ventured. I had a teacher friend who used to teach technical drawing. He took me through the drills, and I started making house plans for people. using my fine art background.
Yes.
And I would, of course, I wasn't legally qualified to do that, but then I would draw them, simplify the work, and then take it to a certified architect, and they would take it through the processes for approval, council authorities and all of that.
Yes.
That's when I came here. When I came here, I didn't know what I wanted to do initially. I targeted, econometrics, particularly because it sounded good. I thought it had to be important. It was, economics, econometrics.
It sounded
clever. It sounded complicated. I was working for, DHUL. It was called Black Health Agency with Sison. She's a Ugandan. She used to be Ugandan, a chairperson for UCOM in Manchester.
Oh, right.
We had a lady counselor who used to come, and speak to us because we were working in sexual health. Advising people online about HIV and all of that. So we used to have a counselor who would come and speak to us, to counsel us, because the job was very, very stressful. Like somebody was on that job that I first learned that a man could have sex with another man. Because people would call in, I had sex with a man, and think what's going on here. So they had to arrange sessions for us. Then this lady one day sat me down and asked me what I wanted to do with my life. I told her I wanted to go back to uni and do econometrics. She asked me, why did you want to do that? And for the first time, I realized I did not know why. She said, well, if you don't know why you want to do it, then you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But she offered me advice to go to, there was an open day at Manchester University. She asked me to go around, look around and see what is out there. Maybe I might get interested in something that might actually work for me. So I went in and I went to the engineering school. And, there was a gentleman discussing what engineering was all about. I used to hear about engineering, but I never knew what exactly it was about. He demonstrated it by, he created a scenario where they had to pick up an object without physical contact, or pick up an object from a bowl without physical contact between the person picking it and the object. And he said that kind of challenge is what engineering problems are. They are everyday problems, slightly different from, problems we solve in markets. I don't have change at all. That kind of problems. And then he said, if you have the aptitude to solve a problem by the way, I came up with the answer. I said we could suck it with AI. If we could have a suction, implement and just suck it out of the bowl, the air would trap it. And he said, yeah, you've got the aptitude. So I would encourage you to go and, explore this field. From there, I went and I spoke to a lady, who was there to speak to people who had picked interest in engineering. Anyway, we had a long conversation. I told her what I had studied before. And she said, well, it looks like you don't have much to offer in terms of a course in this university in engineering. You might have to go back, do GCSE, do A levels, and then come back and have a discussion.
Yeah.
I like a good challenge. I said I was gonna take her up on a challenge. And I came back, I spoke to Sheikh Awoya, I spoke to a gentleman called Mr. Antanda. And they advised me that actually I did not have to go back to do GCSE and all of that. There were courses called Access. That's how I got into engineering. That's the short version of it. I did the course. It was very exciting and I completed it. And I registered for a master's. But then COVID came, the period, the type of COVID time, I thought, in my opinion, I thought maybe I'm wasting too much time at school. I may never need this kind of education. So I sort of paused my studies and I decided to go into work. They offered me a job in, Northern Ireland in aerospace. just before COVID, and I was still thinking about whether I should go. We are discussing it with Rehma, the distance and all of that, the logistics of it. I had accepted the job, but when COVID came, you know, the aviation industry was hit very much because aircraft were not flying. People started canceling orders. I was going to work for Boeing. They have some kind of facility up there. People are not picking up, taking orders and all of that. And by the end of COVID, they had canceled the contract. So I never got a chance to work in a field that I had spent so much time studying and that I loved so much. Yeah. Basically, that is my story. It's still going on. Right now, I'm working with a certain professor at my former university, the Manchester University. He's from Nigeria. We are trying to break the record as the first Black people to design from the ground up an aircraft and build it with our own hands. That's the challenge we're dealing with right now. That is my story, gentlemen, briefly.
Oh, that's very interesting. Then my question would be, do you feel fulfilled now that you've come that way, considering where you started and how unsure you were and where you've ended up? Would you say you are happy with what you've been able to achieve so far?
Nothing has ever given me as much satisfaction as aerospace engineering, the course that I did. But then in terms of work, when you look at what people do, you know, engineers do on a day-to-day basis, it is really kind of boring. So I am a very hard person to please. I get bored very, very easily. So right now I'm scouring the horizon thinking, what else could I do? What else could I study? I was talking to Sheikh Mahabuba the other day because he's doing a course, I think, in Sharia online.
Yes.
And I was telling him maybe I should explore that and see how it goes. So am I fulfilled? Do I feel, you know, self-actualized? I don't feel that way. Maybe when our project that we're working on with my professor succeeds, maybe then I can say that I feel happy and I feel like I've arrived at it.
You've had a vision for yourself, but if now for your children, for example, because what I realized is when it came to me, and I would like to hear your own take on this. When it comes to children now, you realize the kind of courses that we used to emphasize so much during our times, medicine, engineering, law, you know, journalism, these are courses that, yes, they continue to remain with that importance, but new courses have come up that change the dynamics. Digital marketing, for example, now is a big thing. And two of my own sons have sort of taken that direction, and I can see the speed at which they are sort of, you know, delivering on that line. It's a totally new area for, you know, for our own generation. If you were to advise someone in terms of career guidance, career decisions, what would your advice be then, considering you've had your own sort of mixed journey in terms of where you began and where you've ended up?
Yeah, I often encourage young persons to take on a course that will give them problem-solving skills, because it looks like the future that is facing us. Nothing's, I mean, the idea of going to university and attaining a degree in something and then do that for the next 10, 20 years looks like it's going to be an outdated idea. People are going to keep on learning and updating their skills and shifting from this field to that, especially because of the speed at which technology is catching up, you know. So I encourage them, for purposes of foundation, to take on a course that gives them the ability to have problem-solving skills. Things like mathematics, anything that is science-based, in my opinion, is good for a start, because there's always an opportunity for you to go back and you know, change direction. But once you have got these skills in your pockets, you can almost always adjust and do whatever it is that you want. There's this idea of parents here taking students for how do you call it? Is it you know, when somebody learns from the job? I forget the term they use.
Apprenticeship.
Apprenticeship.
Yes.
I disagree with that, because an apprentice learns the specific skills required to do a specific job. It doesn't give you the flexibility that a person who has done, you know, an academic course will have, because I hope you understand what I mean by that.
I think
so basically, that would be my short answer to that. That I advise people to do courses that allow them to have those skills in their pockets. Then they can build on top of. For example, we have Mr. Ntambi's children here. I was very instrumental in advising because they had been offered bricklaying. Yes. Because of their accent, the fact that they had come from Uganda. We fought a lot. We went with Rehma to colleges, challenging the teachers, and they allowed them to take on academic lines. One of them has done computer science, another one has done mechanical engineering, another one did biomedical science. They are all now in IT and programming and coding. But I asked them how do the courses that they did before help in this endeavor of theirs. They say if they didn't have that kind of training before, they would have found it very hard to adjust because they joined those courses with a lot of people who had done geography, who had done history and all of that. And they happen to be more flexible. They adopted a lot more quickly than their colleagues who had, So that's the advice I'll give.
Thank you very much, Ntambi. And that's Mustafa Kawoya, rather, 3 minutes past 9 o'clock. And I come to you, our engineer, Issa Makumbi. We are talking about career paths. And Isma, please, if we can have that clip, our second clip ready, that will help guide us into the next conversation as we finish. Once we finish with Issa Makumbi, we'll be able to have. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Just a quick message here from Bridget, who says, I'm at work, I can't talk. That is noted, and so is Amina Naitiaga also, who says I'm at work listening. Thank you for the show. Yes, Issa Makumbi, yes, you've got the mic, sir. How are you today? And regarding today, where do you come into the conversation?
I'm fine. That has been a very interesting subject. You see people how they change and how life has been turned down. It depends on the background where you're coming from. For me, when I graduated from Soviet Union, I had a Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering. I was lucky. Before the year, I was pestering the Libyan embassy looking for a job. And I got a job on the day of my graduation. So I went to Libya as a mechanical engineer in Nuclear Research Center. I was there for 4 years. I was bored with the way of life. Everything was there, had everything, but their life was unacceptable. Someone who had been known to the Western world dumped into the Middle East, whereby you don't sit in the same car with the women, or if the women sit at the front, whenever it is, life became so unbearable. So I decided to check the job in. They tried to press me hard so that I could stay behind. They thought about increasing my salary, but I was determined to leave. So I ended up in London. When I went to London, I was there for sorting out my papers to start doing some work. It took at least 9 months. By then it was easy. You were there, register, they give you national insurance. Say you're off, can go and look for a job. So when I went to the job, I had high expectation that being a graduate, I was straight run into those jobs. It was surprised. Then I decided to take a middle job to take me off the ground. I went into one of the factories in one source. I worked there for 6 months. They made me a supervisor. We had about 10 men who were working around. Then I became very comfortable. The man, he bought a plane, and then they ran into trouble, ended up selling the company. So, because I said to him that I'm so qualified, since I live in south of the border, I couldn't travel in Tottenham, I was laid off. By then it was just taboo. It was just during the Christmas Eve, then I was laid off. Then I said, okay, let's wait for the Christmas time. Come New Year, I went to job center. I had much expectation that I would get the high job. Then those people were directing us, they used to discourage me to get a cleaning job, blah, blah, blah. I was determined not to do those jobs. I said, no, I'm not going to do those jobs. Fortunately, there was a ticket that came, the job had been advertised. I applied for a job. Then the man called me on Saturday for the interview. When I told my friends, say, hey, that man might be very careful. You know, these Wazungus are very dodgy. I don't see anybody inviting for an interview on Saturday. So I went in his workshop. I went in his workshop. The man looked a bit funny. We talked. It was more other than interviewing me, when that was from Soviet Union, became so much interest in that. He was asking more so much about Soviet Union. Then I said, what that man is. I didn't really, man looked very complicated. Then he said, okay, come back on Monday. We continue from where I stopped. So when I came on Monday, I started talking about Soviet Union, what I do. Then he took me in his workshop. He gave me the machine to see whether I could use the lathe, cutting machines and everything. That's thing that I did in my practical skills. I did the things. Then the man was surprised. He said, okay, I'll give you a job on probation for 6 months, see whether you can do the work. Then he talked about the job, say the salary, said, don't mind about the salary. If you can deliver, I'll give you money. Then I was there for 3 months. He made me a supervisor, foreman of the factory. So I worked in that place. Then talked about, I was more interested in going to study. He said, you've got enough qualification. Why do you bother about this? Going back to university and study. Just be confident. Then he said, you just go and look for another job. Then the guy talked to me. Then I say, all right, I don't mind about that one. I went around. I saw an advertisement. It was a local authority that was advertising in Hanslow for plant maintenance technician. I applied for a job. I got the job. Then I was there for 2 years because I was doing the night shift and working Monday to Sunday. By then I decided a family. So it was very difficult. I got fed up with the job. So I told the man that I'm taking the job. Instead, no, don't went. Then they gave me something to sweeten me up to go to the college. When I went to the college, what they are teaching, the thing that I learned when I was in A level. So it was not interesting to me. Then I applied to there was a post that had been advertised as technical officer in Lanabara of Hanslow, not Hanslow, Martin. I went for the interview. I got the job. Then when I got the job, I was there for some 4 years. The structure came in. Then I said, they proposed that my job, there was a lady whom I trained how to do the work. She thought that she could know more than I did. So she went through the backside. Then I was laid off. Then I said, okay, fine. But then gave me at least 3 months. You have to look for a job. You have to serve the notice. Then I went to the same department, was housing. When I went to the interview, the man was saying that you've got a mechanical engineering background. Can you fit into building surveyor? The job had been advertised as building surveyor. Then I said there are two different things, steel and concrete. The technology is the same. You just have to know how to do the motor there. We use the boat to put things together. Use the boat, here, use the motor. The man became, the word I said motor and boat, was much excited. Then he gave me the job. I was there for some 2.5 years. You know, with local authority, whenever there's anything, the structure comes in. Whenever they run into troubles, they have to downsize. And by then, the last come in and they want to leave. So I was laid off for that time. Then I decided to go temping. When I got a job, it was just a night job. I said I need to get a night job so that to give me time to do job searching during the daytime. So I walked into one of their house, job was too heavy, manual, weather was terrible, winter too cold, summer too hot. I was there for 4 months. Then I decided to go to the temping. I went to register at one of the agencies. They took me on, they gave me a job in Suffolk. I was there started with North London. That was private company. Then I went to Suffolk temping there for 9 months. Then I got a job. They had want to give me a job in Savok, but the area was not attractive. There were a lot of problems over there. As you said, you could go in someone's house, anything could happen. The place was more run down. The people were really most of the time we on drugs. So I feel that was not the right place to work in that place.
Makumbi, I'll tell you that I've lost even track of how many jobs you had been doing now. In all of this now, when it comes to sort of a career guidance, if you were to advise someone on a career path, what would you say? What would you advise them?
The problem with us, we don't sell ourselves. If you are going for an interview, we don't sell, or don't market ourselves properly.
Yes.
When you're invited for interview, we just see what in the job description or personal specification that we specialize in. First, learn the mentality of the area. If it's a private company, what they do, how they recruit. Listen, ask people around. For the interview, you can talk to some people around work in those organizations. They'll tell you so much about that. Most likely, they know that should know the background. Can you join the company? Do you fit in? For us, what we do is say, when you go for an interview, they're not, if you are invited for an interview, 50% of that, you meet the criteria for that job. But the purpose of the interview to determine whether you can fit in. For us, if we go on for an interview, we don't market ourselves to fit in. We come with our luggage. We are not, how can I say it? We can't start the situation. If you got the panel.
Want to know in terms of career, mu career, oyinachoyagala, oyinachosobola, waliwo ekiriko sente. I think that there are like these three competing things. There is something that you want. There is something that you can, because there are times many people would have wanted to become a pilot or so and so, but probably that's not something that you can do. There is something that you can do, but there's also something that now is able to provide. For example, when we come abroad now, you realize in a dream, but you get to a point where you want money. You are in a job. You are wearing your tie, or nyumirwa n'ogenda 9 to 5, you come back. But the person with the van is making much more money because they've found ways around that. And your office job is not enough, and yet you get to a point where you want money. So questioning now, should I stay in my tie and have the comfort of a tie when it comes to actually practically needing the money that I need? The money is elsewhere. No. What would be your
advice? When you get the job, see the progression in the system, recruitment. How far can you go? Go for training. If you go for training, you use that to run as a benchmark to move on to another company or into another business whereby you get more money. But if you're in one place, don't be there for so long. 4 or 5 years is enough. Train for managerial post. If you have to be promoted, you have to move out of that establishment. That's the only way you could be promoted. But if not, you'll be in the same place for a number of years, you will hardly be, you won't be recruited, you won't be promoted. The thing is, people, what they do, when they get in the job, they become so comfortable. They don't want to upgrade or study anything extra to add on what they've got.
All right.
If you keep on training, that one can easily break the ceiling.
Yeah. Very much appreciated. 16 minutes past 9 o'clock. The program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, and we are talking about career changes. You have been in a career, midway you decide to make a change, depending on what, well, probably the circumstances are. Is it a money motivation? Is it a personal satisfaction motivation? Is it a circumstantial motivation? Because it might be that one career used to be worthy something before, and then all of a sudden it disappears. HIJJA Naima Kayira, I come to you before crossing then to Abdullah Khamis. HIJJA Naima, your first qualifications were in public administration, and then you end up in social work. Well, probably not so much far away, not so much far apart, but what informed your decision? Welcome to the conversation.
I was just enjoying this listening.
Well, that's the listening. It's time we got to listen to you. And as a caveat, that's my wife. Yes, Hajjat Naima, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Career change. Yes, obviously, we did study things that we thought would benefit us in Uganda in terms of doing office job, administration, because I majored in human resource. So you had those hopes that's what you end up doing. But then you come here, situation is different. You need reference, you need some background. And I think coming here, people already sort of given you that impression that in Papua Uganda, there was that sort of feeling. So you come when you're really traumatized. So I had to do access courses that I think I shouldn't have. So I just wanted to do something more what I always wanted, which is to do with people, administration, and things like that. So I managed to go. We were in Woolwich. I think there was an office that offered career guidance and stuff. So the gentleman was quite helpful in directing me into what I may do in terms of what I wanted to do. So he came up with social work. He said that was quite a good place to deal with people, yet obviously deal with administration. And that's how I think I joined Greenwich College. And because obviously you had no evidence of GCSE maths and English, I had to do the access, then applied to uni to do the degree in social work. But I remember on my first day of my course, my tutor was saying, actually, Naima, with your qualifications and your you don't need to do the degree. You should really do masters. That was what she had recommended. But because I didn't know the policies, the laws and stuff like that, I thought I would struggle. And initially I did, and that was one interesting thing. I was good. I think I was good with lots of things, but when I came to reflective work, I kind of struggled because I don't remember in Uganda us doing that. So maybe the people, but I don't remember us. It was about putting up Kramwa, and then there was about you saying an answer, and then at the end saying why it was like a debate, sort of like these are the reasons, for example, French Revolution. These are the reasons that led to French Revolution. One of them, obviously. And then you then come down and say, but given all those points, you see what I mean? It was like, I don't know, it wasn't quite exotic, if I may say. So it was like, do that, and then at the end you conclude. So I struggled with journal writing because I remember that's one of the things we were given in our first year, about your day. Talk about your day, analyze it. What was that? What was the feeling? I don't know whether that people relate with that. So this is why now I understand why our children are being asked to keep a diary, because it helps you in the future. I struggled with, I couldn't sit and write like today. I walked, I went to the super, someone, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that narrative. So at first I did struggle, but then later I sort of caught up. Then I kind of now know why I had to do that exercise, because my reports, even in court, have been, what's the word? Commended, is it commended? By the judges, being really very...
That is in your line as a social worker.
Yes, in my line as social worker. So I'm talking about the culture, the learning culture I came from, being different from what I have then encountered within the UK. So that exercise where I had to talk, just simple thing, talk about your day, your feelings. Why did you feel that? What it just in my line of work is very, very important, that sort of reflective analysis. So for me, there hasn't, apart from the fact that I had to work to earn some small money, so we had to do care work and stuff like that. There was not much I have changed in terms of career, because that's what I wanted. Then I pursued it, and then I got what I wanted to do.
That granted, I think from your explanation, I think it comes quite well across. And Jaden is saying, I relate with what HIJJA is saying there. But I've found that at a practical level, now you've gone in, you've done the masters, you are in social work, I'm in journalism. But when it comes like to home management, you are much more practical. You're actually much more DIY than I am. You are much more practical. You'll get a nail, you'll get a hammer and take on things. You went and took a course in tailoring, in sewing, and at that level where, for example, you've had to take a trouser to a Jewish man in Bensham to go and just to reduce, make alterations at the bottom to pay 10 pounds or 5 pounds. Bring and making sure that I know you are there and you just sit and just turn it around in no time. I think those life skills for me actually have been a lot, much more practical. They have made me appreciate a few, areas where, for example, I regret, like, why did I ignore like mechanics? Because during my senior 4, it's a story I've told for people who are always on the program. You will remember in my senior 4 vacation, my mom sends me to a garage to go and learn some mechanical skills. But while on my second day in the garage, first day I end up in a lot of oil and I'm considering my situation. Second day, the next thing is some senior army officer comes up into the garage, and while I'm there, he comes to complain about his Mercedes-Benz having a problem. He was Major Bwende then. I go and rush, radiator, the vehicle was heated up, the family was inside the car. The thing was just about to come off, the cap, and if it had come off, it would splatter water, and chances are probably the fear was the vehicle could catch fire. The army officer got a gun and put it to my head and said, family. The person really, swore to me, and then he was saying, do you want to kill my family? And I had to hold on to that radiator cap, screw it to make sure I take it back. Remember, there is that force, the pressure that is coming from the hot water. I have nothing, so it's my palm that is directly on the cap, screwing back the radiator with full force. I got my palm really badly burnt. And that was the last day I could stand in a garage. I missed out, and I was never to step in a garage after that. But every time I go and I pay to a mechanic, you go to Muna's garage, you go to whoever, and you see sometimes it's something really small, something that you would have thought probably you would have been able to fix. The pain of that makes me sort of question the kind of education, whether we should have much more vocational education. Would you agree, HIJJA? I think I've gone long-winded, but I was trying just to narrow it down to this. And Google, I can see your hand raised. Yes, HIJJA.
For me, the Taylor, I don't even know how you remember that. For me, it was about actually, I I didn't have clothes that fit as a Muslima. Like the clothes that were being sold were either showing my legs, half of my legs. So there was nothing that I would sort of desire to have that would be of the floor length of maxi or something. So that really pushed me to go and do a course. And I remember doing that course between work. And I learned how to make a dress from scratch. And obviously that's how then I've learned to do alterations and things like that. So yes, I've done different courses within my career as a social worker. So that's quite interesting. But that's what pushed me. Until now, there were no clothes for me. I think I was too tall. I remember one time wearing a gomes. And I was like, tablik. I said, no, I'm not doing that again. So,
well, but the point I was trying to drive home, though, was the fact that I see a career change. I mean, social work is really stressful. I've seen times that you've come home and you're just all so stressed. It might be that actually your career path might just take, just like I ended up into farming and becoming very passionate about it. You might find yourself going into running a shop or clothes, and you're able to use your skills now that were got in sewing, in coming in quite.
That one I would. I can design a dress from scratch. That one I would do, yes.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Aisha. Abdullah Khamis had come in earlier. It's 28 minutes past 9 o'clock. Abdullah Khamis's hand went down. So I'll do the quick ones from Aisha and Google Pixel. I think Google Pixel 7 came in before that. So I'll come to you. Isma, if we can have our clip then, because after the two, we'll take a quick break and then we come back, we'll go to Abdullah Khamis. But do not mind, even if you have already spoken, this is a conversation. Something might come up in your mind and you feel like you would want to share. Isma, we'll come to the clip after we have spoken to Google Pixel 7, please.
Hi, Sheikh Kassim, Assalamu alaikum. This is Fazil. I don't know why my phone displayed
as Google Pixel 7.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you mentioned something there very interesting, the idea of vocational training and trades. Personally, I think I learned a lot at home on how my parents handled me, the life skills I learned, living under strict parents, and things they taught me as a boy, growing up on a farm, doing my father's chores, going to the garden, digging and doing all those sorts of things. And then coming back home and doing my mom's chores, cooking and mopping and, doing all those sorts of things. And then interpersonal relationships, on how you speak to people, why you should be polite to people and stuff like that. Those are things, some of which are actually not taught in school, but even making friends, how you speak to people, very interesting thing that, I always find, some of my kids here, they struggle to, not my kids, okay, but I see kids here struggling to make friends.
Yes.
And then, it's a skill, right? I don't know if it's a skill or it's an art or, something like that, and how you treat your friends and stuff like that. And yeah, to me, it's quite interesting. But also the other thing that you mentioned, the idea of, vocational education. Now, I have an education background. Before I came to the UK, I was a teacher in Uganda. History, geography. I was passionate about teaching personally, because my father had inserted it to me whereby he wanted a teacher in the family. So I was like, I'll become a teacher, but I was also passionate about what do you call it, history. But then, of course, teaching back home, you can't make ends meet out of it and stuff like that. But then, of course, the questions that people are asking here, why do we study Napoleon, all these sorts of things? How do they help me in this world today? It's quite hard to understand, but from a historical point of view, for people who enjoy history and, trying to learn from what happened in the past and in today's, politics and stuff like that, you can relate in such circumstances. But coming to this generation today, because but with the advancement in technology, I think careers are also changing in one way or the other. Now, when I came over here, I was like, okay, I should get into employment. I should either teach or I should go for a master's or, start up a small business or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I ended up, first of all, I tried to apply for student loan to go for a master's or something in education. I couldn't get one because I wasn't here for enough years. That's what they told me. So I went and I applied to teach. The market was oversaturated. He told me that there are too many teachers, but you can be a substitute and then wait. I was like, this is literally not going to work out for me. So I ended up in the factories. So I worked in the factories, left, right, and center. And then I went to the college. I picked passion in cooking. So I went and did a course in, confectionery, catering, and making cakes and baking and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, the idea was when I make cakes and bake, I have to put it online and maybe create like an online channel or an online blog and stuff like that. So I figured out it was too much work as well. So I was like, you know what? I learned history back home. I knew a bit about Ugandan history. I knew a bit about African history that we taught in school. Why don't I get that and then bring it together with technology and then put it out there to the world, ending up creating a YouTube channel. And then the YouTube channel actually became successful. And
what's the name of the YouTube channel?
The problem is that it has to, and I can tell you in private because some of the stuff have, okay, it's called a history, where I talk about different African leaders from,
because now, I mean, with such programs, we are sort of promoting one another. And
oh, yeah, sure. But, it's something I would do on the side.
Remember, at which point I remember to plug my own. Mine is called oh good.
I've seen yours where you did one for the most fertile woman in Africa or something like that.
No, but there's another one for farming now. Since I started farming, it's called Farmtastic Africa. So instead of fantastic as the word, it is farm as in farming. So Farmtastic Africa.
Lovely.
We will get time, please just get a look.
Yeah, sure. So I realized that I have to use what's around me. I have free internet. All I have to do is learn a skill, which is video editing, and then get a camera or a microphone and, stand and start doing something. So during COVID, when we were in lockdown, I taught myself how to edit videos or how to shoot videos and all that kind of stuff. Literally, I went into a rabbit hole on YouTube, learning all these skills because I had all the time. And that's how I learned. I didn't even go to school. So then I created the channel, and then I ran it just single-handedly. And then on the side, I was doing other jobs and stuff like that. So, but then from that point on, I was like, okay, I think I should start running my own business. Now, of course, I'm not against anyone who's takes a completely different career path, but I think we are all modeled in quite a different way. So I was like, okay, so what should I do? Now, it takes me back on how I was raised. So I was like, okay, my mom taught me how to clean. Why shouldn't I start a cleaning business or something of that sort? So I started cleaning houses. But then I was like, how do I bring...
Hold on, Fazil. Now, you are this history and geography teacher.
Yes.
Did you not find any inferiority complexes when it came to cleaning? Or because you had lived in this country for long, you had already lost that, you had shed away that? Because part of the problem, I think, for many, considering the fact that with the position that would have with a person cleaning, the kind of attitude, I want you to take yourself back home and put yourself in that picture. Because here you go back, like on the farm now, I get dirty, I get in there, I lift stuff, I work with the farm hands, and they cannot believe it. They feel like I should be smart and just instructing them on what to do. But having been here and seeing, the kind of respect that is for jobs, we clean other people's toilets. Why can I not clean my own? And it becomes an issue. Did you not at any point sort of face a sort of a complex, an inferiority complex regarding, say, going down the route of cleaning, considering you are the teacher who would be wearing the tie?
No, absolutely not, because I'm not a person with a low self-esteem, like I know myself. And also, I realized like I was passionate about cleaning. I literally hate being in a dirty environment. And I hate seeing someone who is untidy, someone who is dirty. That would be me. So I had passion for cleaning. But then I realized I was like, okay, how can I take it to another level? How can I look at my competitors in the area where I am and, bring it to the next level? So I was like, okay, technology again is the competitive edge in each and every business and everything that we do, whether you're a social worker, whether you're a journalist, whether you're what. There are so many tools with technology that you can use with the skills that you have, whether writing a blog or starting a channel or starting any account. And, it can literally catapult you to levels that you have never thought about. Now, coming back to my cleaning, what I did when I started, like I didn't have anything, right? I just had my Hoover and maybe a mop and a bucket. But then I was also passionate about technology. So I was like, why don't I start a Facebook page? So I started the Facebook page. Then I was like, okay, what do I have to do now? You have to promote it. So I promoted the page in my local area. And then I started cleaning houses in the local area. Now, the idea about cleaning is quite fascinating because when I started cleaning, when you do a good job, then it becomes a word of mouth. Oh, there's this black guy that is cleaning houses, is really good, and then this one tells the other one, and before you know it, the entire community knows who you are. Now, from there, you create your own website, and then you get into search engine optimization, you market online, and then people can just come. But then, let me wind up. Coming back to the point about inferiority complex and stuff like that, I realized that, okay, if I'm to work per hour, for example, if I'm making 25 pounds per hour, it means that out of 24 hours, your amount of money that you're going to make during that period of time is limited. But then I was like, so I have to charge per job, meaning that if it is a 5 hours job, I could maybe charge, I'm not saying that's what I charge, but I could charge £1,000 in one job, right? Now, if I charge £1,000 per job, it means that I have literally no limit, as a person who works per hour. So then when I realized the model and stuff like that on how I can get this entire thing working and moving, so that's when I literally dug deep into it. And 7 years down the road, I've been cleaning houses and I've never looked back. But then on the side, I could also do my YouTube stuff and things like that, which is quite interesting.
The YouTube channel is what?
I have one that's my Anja Fazil. I have another one called Afristry. And that's it.
Stream is the one I'll plug. Well, no, I mean, there should be no shame. If it's work, it's work. And that's what we are actually trying to promote here. Thank you very much, Fazil. I'll go to Aisha. Oh my God, and time can decide to run. Very much appreciative, Fazil, for that information. I think you can see where now that comes in. Let me just plug this as I bring Aisha in. A quick one, because when it comes to the inferiority complex thing that we have been saying, in my other life, to sort of help fund the farming and the flexibility to be on the farm, because you would be wondering, how do you manage to farm when you are in UK? Well, I've divided my time between the UK and the farm. And to be able to fund that and be able, to run comfortably, I do Uber. I have lost the number of times I've been driving someone in an Uber, going to drop them off. You have a conversation, especially with intellectuals, because normally I'm around universities and you have like lecturers in universities. You have a conversation, and then the next thing is they're telling you, are you sure you're a taxi driver? You are so clever to be a taxi driver. And I've found that really there are those times when you feel like, is the taxi driver not supposed to be a person of intellect or something like that? So the complex then comes in to say, is this the kind of attitude that people ordinarily have on taxi drivers? And it's quite a lesson to many that, not everyone that you see behind the wheel is just nothing. Aisha, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome to the conversation. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Yes, career change.
Yes, career change. I'm at the point where I'm actually I've been critically thinking about a career change. I've just heard you ask your wife regarding when social work is stressful. I'm a social worker myself, but I think I've come to a point where I feel, well, I've had enough. Maybe I've even passed the time when I should have left.
Right.
You're right. It's such a stressful job. And much as I went into social work, and I'm very passionate about it. And my first degree in Uganda was business administration. I went in business administration because at that time I was working in a marketing field. So I went into business administration thinking I would stay in the company to do more of my skills from the university. But then when I came here, I switched into to do social work via the access because I didn't have the background of sociology and psychology. So I went into the field very passionately about it. And I think over the years, you come to a point when you feel, much as you love the job. In this country, I think there's so many protocols and procedures and policies that are embedded within either social work or teaching or wherever you are. So you feel sometimes it's not the work itself, but it's the protocols. And I think Naima can agree with me on that. It's the protocols, that it's the paperwork that you're constantly battling with, that you constantly carry work. You carry the work in your mind and you carry the work at home with you. With this nation of working at home now, it's like you have more and more all the time, more and more. So I think for me, I've come to a point, much as is a field that I really loved and passionate about, helping others, but I would rather convert those skills into something else and continue to support others.
So have you thought about what you might be crossing into?
Yes. First of all, because of the social work, doing social work, I've listened to so many, you listen to so many stories and you listen to so many, the sad, the good, but mainly the negatives, I would say, as opposed to the good stories. So I went into the pathway of, I'm a social work, I'm doing social work as my job, but I went into the lines of psychotherapy, counseling, and family therapy.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm now in the second year, but I'm even now asking myself, is this the right pathway that I would have? If I'm tired of the pressure there, I'm still saying that there will be at some point some pressure somewhere, because there's still, I'm going to be still dealing with people problems, which, okay, I was seeing it in this way, in this field of counseling, psychotherapy is a more lesser level because people are able to manage. By the time you take on someone, a client, they are more readily, kind of to heal. You see what I mean? As opposed to social work where
you have to start building up a case from zero.
Yes, they offload and you start from the scratch, trying to support them. So I was seeing it in a way that, okay, this is going to be more calming for me in terms of, because that person, by the time they come into counseling, that person is ready for change. They've been through social services, they've been whatever, they may be drug or education, and then they are ready to take on. So I'm in my second year, but I'm also thinking, okay, am I ready to cope up with this again? Because this is the same, these are the same issues. So somehow I feel like I want to take completely a different pathway, again. So I've got to a point where I'm now questioning myself. And what helps me again is the thinking that, okay, maybe when I finish this course, I will be on a freelance. I won't work for anyone, you have your own kind of surgery where you do at your own pace. You take on the clients at your own pace. So now, that
Aisha,
kind of
allow me,
yes.
Just to play this particular clip. I'm sure it might help actually to paint a picture exactly of where you're trying to go. Isma, if we have that,
okay.
Aisha, I can come back to you. And Abdullah Hamiz, I haven't forgotten you. Sincere apologies, I've kept you waiting long. Let's just play this clip, Isma, if it's ready, the career change, the questions you need to ask yourself. I think that should help to lay the basis. Yes, that's the one. Let's just watch
Thank
this
you.
clip, and then I'm
Okay.
sure off the back of it, we should have a couple of answers to the questions at hand.
So I'm a lawyer and the wife of a diplomat. You know what I'm pretty great at? Talking. You can get me into a room with almost anyone and I can find something to talk about. Now, when I meet new people, one of the questions that I love to ask is, how did you come to be here? And I don't mean by taxi or grab or motorbike, but how did you come to be here at this point in your life? And the answers always leave me riveted because I never could have anticipated that I would be here, in my life or in Vietnam. I grew up, I spent the most of my childhood in small town Ohio, a state that calls itself the heart of America. And I didn't get my first passport until I was 18. A few years later, when I met the man who was to be my husband, I had only ever left the country once. And when I met him, oh wow, he was smart and he was handsome and he was witty and he was going places, literally. So it took me a few years to convince him to marry me. I totally chased him. And at the same time, I was pursuing my law degree. Well, so when I graduated from law school, we got married. And in 1 year, the first year of our marriage and the first year of my career as Laura the lawyer, my husband came home and he says, you know what, I've got a job that can take us overseas. What do you think? And I said, oh, you know, I'm kind of torn here. I mean, a life of travel and adventure or a clear and distinguished career path. I don't know. I mean, exotic locations, great food, new people, fun and exciting times. Or I could stay Laura the lawyer. And I've worked really hard for that. You know, I spent years and years of time and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars invested in that title, in that career track, in that trajectory. And I wondered, if I followed my husband in his job overseas, what would happen to mine? Well, I had to figure it out. So off we went. And there we were. Overseas. Oh, the fun. Oh, the adventure. Yes, there I was, at home, alone, with no job. Oh, what had I done? And I'll never forget the moment when I realized the impact this choice might have had on my career. I was standing in the elevator at my husband's office, and a woman comes in, and she says, oh, hi, are you new here? Yes, I am. She says, great, well, welcome. Do you think that you're going to be looking for a job while you're here? Yes, I do. She says, you know, a job in the mailroom just opened up. You should check it out. Wow, thank you. The mailroom. Was Laura the lawyer destined to sort mail? Now, don't get me wrong, sorting mail is a very important job, and one that can be lots of fun, from what I've been told. But it is a job that didn't hold much meaning for me, didn't make me feel like I was fulfilling my life purpose, like I was living up to my full potential. And the question made me wonder, had I sacrificed my career, my chances for success, by following my husband? Now, at the time, it certainly felt like it. And I was sad and angry and resentful. And these feelings are not unique to me or to the expat population or to anyone who considers himself a trailing spouse or an accompanying partner. It can also be the parent who chooses to stay home and raise children, or the child who, once grown, returns home to take care of an aging parent. Here in Hanoi, it can be the educated woman who, when she decides to get married, leaves her family to join her husband's. It's anyone, anywhere, who chooses to change their life course for the sake of, for the love of, another. And of course, we love our spouse, we love our kids, we love our parents, and we would do anything for them. And that's why we make those choices. It's to be with them, to support them. But when we do that, we sometimes also can't help but wonder, well, is this what I was meant to do? Now, was I meant to sort mail? No, I didn't end up working in the mailroom, and yes, I did find a job everywhere we lived. Tunisia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Israel, and Vietnam. And in every place, I have held some really interesting jobs. But I thought all of them were a big fat nothing, because I wasn't moving forward as Laura the lawyer. And I was miserable. Until I got to Hanoi. And within my first few weeks of arriving here, I was invited out to a lunch with a few new friends. And as it does in any getting to know you conversation, the question of work came up. So Laura, what do you do? Oh, I hated that question because I never knew how to answer, right? Well, I was a lawyer, but then we moved, and then we moved again, and I had this job, and then I had this other job, and I don't know. Poor me, I don't know what I do. I'm not really sure. And so this woman looked at me, and she said, well, if you could do anything, what would it be? Wow, if I could do anything. Now that's a question that I hadn't been asked since I was a child. And it blew my mind. I mean, it had me stunned. It rendered me temporarily speechless. And when I thought about it, I thought, you know, I could do anything. I didn't have to stay on the track of being Laura the lawyer. I could be and do something different. And when I thought about it, I started realizing that all the things that I had done along the way, all the titles had been very different, but I had been doing the same things all the time. I suddenly saw that each of those pieces were fitting together, and it felt fantastic. True, I had not accomplished the same things that my law school classmates had accomplished, but I had done a lot. I had lived all over the world, and in every place I had found a way to move forward, to grow. I may not have succeeded at moving forward as Laura the lawyer, but wow, did I do well at being Laura the motivator, Laura the advocate, Laura the writer, Laura the persuasive speaker. And looking back and looking forward, if I could do anything, well, I think I would like to help other people gain this amazingly empowering perspective that I had just been gifted. And so here I am. And it took me 16 years and jobs in 7 countries to get here and to realize that I had found success in every place. So please, let me save you some time in your journey. There are 3 key steps that you can take to find success anywhere you are. Step 1, be open to and ready for change. In 1989, Charles Handy wrote a book called The Age of Unreason, and in it, he predicted that careers would be a portfolio of different jobs rather than one position that lasted for decades. Guess what? He was right. In 2007, the New York Times recognized that when it comes to careers, change is the only constant. If jumping off track once was stigmatized, it now has cachet. Career change has cachet. At that time, they predicted that people would change jobs an average of 3 times. But by 2010, the number had jumped to 7. By 2015, the number had jumped to 10. And in March of this year, the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics estimated 12 to 15 careers per person. 15 careers per person. That's right, if you haven't changed jobs not just once but a few times, you are behind the times. Changing jobs can be a strength. It can be an asset in your professional development. It can show that you're flexible, adaptable, resilient, and that you have creative problem-solving abilities. In Handy's words, change, after all, is only another word for growth, a synonym for learning. We can all do it, and here's the key, enjoy it if we want to. Which leads us to step number 2. Embrace the experiences, ditch the titles. Today, a successful career is not based on a single job title, the same job in different locations. It's the process of diligently developing and then quickly adapting a set of skills to answer life's challenges. I might not have been Laura the lawyer every place we lived, but in every location I served as a talented writer, a persuasive speaker, an advocate for those who needed my voice. These were the common threads that tied my professional experiences together. So ask yourself, what are the skills that you consistently use in everything that you end up doing? Therein lies your strength, your story, your path to success. Author Jeff Goins wrote The Art of Work recently. It's a really great book. You should read it. In it, he encourages you to think about your work as an artist's portfolio, where each piece stands on its own and is its own beautiful work, but when compiled into a portfolio, clearly illustrates the progress that the artist has made, the growth that she has come through in the years. In your work, your careers, each seemingly unrelated experience stands on its own, but can also be viewed as a contribution to a collective whole, a beautiful collage of a career that you are creating. By ditching the titles and embracing the experiences, you expand your employment options and you can better enjoy the journey. But okay, Laura, how do we land a job? Great question, and this is the key. Step number 3, make meaningful connections. All theory and warm, fuzzy feelings aside, on a very practical level, creating real-life connections through actual conversations can enable and empower you to find success. Despite the plethora of internet-based job boards that are out there, 85% of jobs are still filled by word of mouth, by personal connection. Is it really a surprise that someone needs to know you in order to recommend you, in order to want to hire you? So plug in, not with devices, but with people. Ask questions, seek advice, tell the world what you want to do so that when those opportunities arise, they think of you. Start today. Go and have a coffee or get crazy, have an entire meal with someone whose job really intrigues you, someone whose activities interest you, someone who you just think that you'd like to get to know better. Start a conversation. And if you're looking for a way to get that talk going, I've got a couple of great questions that can start you on your road. When I meet new people, I love to ask, how did you come to be here? And if you could do anything, what would it be? Thank you.
And that has been the question that we were trying to ask. 2 very important questions that we should be, well, getting to was the end of our conversation, thinking about if you wanted, how did you get here? And if you wanted to be anything, what would that be? Of course, the point here, iPhone in the chat room says, when you want to change your career, you need to do a feasibility study and compare before you completely abandon your career without taking a risk. You can't progress to another level. I'd promised to come to Abdallah Khamis, and then I see Jaden's hand is up. We'll just be wrapping up now, coming to you and listening to your pointers now in terms of taking that particular leap of faith. Abdallah Khamis, oina akazinda arusiku. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Actually, I'm going to mix the language because it will be easier for me.
Please.
Most of the things that have been talked about. What the point here, which I saw that that you are trying to let how do people manage to be here, coming with a different job, whatever they used to know, and they manage to come here, whether or to go at the time to shop into another job. Is that not true? Most people here who came here with different purpose. At 85 years, it might be economical immigrants, which means that money, everybody can have for money to go and develop his place. So, if like engineer, he was talking nice at the beginning, and I say, if you come here, you know, why did you left the country? Because any academic which is going ahead, a few unless to study science. Like the guy who I've just said, he studied himself by himself using the computer. Once you have reached in the age of senior 6, you can study anything you need. Scientifically as well is good. But what I could mean for advice for people is do jobs which can earn. That's why these people, when they came to Africa, they hidden everything of telling us how do you get money. They just put you to study, go and be starting from where you start from P1, carry 9 syllabuses, you are 10, 15, the top of the university. When you reach some point, they say drop this, do this one, and those were not going to help you. So far, I'm trying to cut in short, like a chambogo. It's all about chambogo. People to reach in such a place here, look for what we can make you earn. For example, forage, join farming, constructing, building, so you can be able to be a electrician. Because here we are not looking for, no one who is now in our age is looking for being more than what we are. We have already done everything. I think we are finished because we are 40, most of us, most of those who are 20 maybe, but those who are in 40, we just need to go and look after, build a house, have a farm, to get a man and take it and you do your job. For me, what I could think of people to do, they should trap from whatever what they are doing. If you're a teacher there, you come here, you can't get being a teacher. Yeah, you trap for something which can make you to start earning. Because the more you stay, the more you are losing your time. And if you start working with you start learning what you are supposed to go and earn, because by now, you started with 1 year, 2 years, you sort of find yourself, you have a garage, because you left that car, what you are doing, came here, went to study, take a course of mechanic, you start being a mechanic. Another one, start being a builder. The other one being, like that. I think that's the idea could be which you could give us to go on, rather than going to academic. How do you think, guys?
I think that, yes, makes a lot of sense.
Because even children you have now, if they reach here, you don't need to have to make him to go on academic. Academic, he will make himself by himself when he does he's working, and when he want to go back home, he stays 2 hours. He can study by himself. I think people should think of, that's the Englishman when he came to Africa. He left everything for them when they are here. You find a kid from down. He comes, reaches 16 years. He can do something which is, he can be a builder. You find him with farming. He can be a mechanic. You say, how did he study this? Because for them, they start them from down, teaching them what to do, being a joiner, electrician, like that. They don't need even to go far away. When they want to go study, they study at home on computer. It's technology, because we don't need any more anything to be hassle with syllabuses. Syllabuses are going to make you to feed in your brain books at home. Those books you put at home, I don't think that for me, there still need to be people put books at home. And even they see it in their manifesto that they should just not to go such a thing. They make us to be not knowing what's going on. For them, they make money. For us, we are still backward, thinking of becoming an engineer, and then senior engineer, and then you go on courses and courses. But when they add you money in salary, you find you are getting less. They add you 15p, 20p, and you had those honors, ranks. You are ranks, in the terminology of them. You are now you are good. From a nurse, you senior nurse. Senior nurse, we are manager nurse. Well, so those are the things, and you end up 20 years, you can't even build a house. But when you start by your own thing, by now could be, because I've seen these guys here which have made them to become now what they are. Guys here, all the boys are here who are from Uganda. Let me tell you, they are in construction. They have built houses. They have bought houses of themselves in a few 3 years. I have them here, all of them. But I told them, go here in college, do this. They went to 2, 3 classes or 1 year. Now they get concerned. He's a boss of himself. He has a van. He goes and they give them contractors here every time you see them. I'm going to build it. I have a building. Those are building. I'm the one building that one. I have jobs here. Yeah, my God. And this say, yeah, I bought a house. That's my house. They are here boys from Uganda. So what I'm trying to tell people, they should change. We'll try to find things which they see that is not worth it. Bring a pram here It's a good money rather than you being whatever teacher, whatever teacher gets more and more hobbies, maybe. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Abdallah. It's just because of time now, 6 minutes past 10 o'clock. Much appreciated, and thanks for your patience. I'm sure the point has been clearly made, especially with those people who are making inroads. Jaden, your hand was up. I don't know whether that's what you wanted to push, and then I'll come back to Aisha as we get to wrap up our conversation tonight. It's been a very, very interesting debate, and I'm very happy that today has been quite interactive. HIJJA Sarah has been quiet, so probably we will get to hear from you before we call it a night. Jaden, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity again. I just wanted to touch on three things, picking up from what Hajat Naima and brother Faisal and the the aeronautic engineer have said. Very important points. Now, Faisal said he went into teaching because his dad wanted him to become a teacher. They wanted a teacher in the family. But in the age where we are now, it becomes counterproductive to direct your children to go into a profession which you think is the profession. Because I remember when we were growing up, my dad would talk about being a doctor, being an engineer, and they would push us towards those subjects, towards that. And we ended up not doing very well. So the passion was not there. So at our age, we are now reaching the bowing out stage, and we don't know what direction the world is taking. And the mentality of pushing our kids to certain directions is not going to help them, because that's their life. We're going to leave them here, and to leave them in that miserable state of taking a career which they don't enjoy is going to be problematic to them. So that's point number one. Number two is what Hajat Naima raised, which is the self-reflection. And this is what you find very common in most employments in the Western world. Now, the purpose of it is so you can find yourself, because you start asking yourself the basic questions. What have I done? And how have I done it? And what does it mean to me? So the last question there is the important one. What does it mean to you? If what you are doing doesn't mean anything to you, then there's no point in doing it. And that is the point where most of us decide to move on. You are doing your social work, you are doing your engineering, but what does it mean to you? Is it making any change to you, or is it making a change to the life of other people? And if it doesn't have a meaning or a purpose, then it's time to move on. And finally, somebody talked about the regulations and regulatory bodies. Now, the purpose of that is to protect the integrity of the occupation, because if you see in most African countries, plumbers and teachers, everybody have got their own agenda. So there is nothing that kind of unites professions. Now here is so that if you, for example, if you pick a plumber from Bristol and brought them here, they would do the same work that a plumber from Edinburgh would do. So it makes life a lot easier for the consumers. And if you're not going to fit into that regulatory body, then you don't fit in any kind of occupation, and your life will be miserable. And the purpose, another purpose of the regulation is for people, or the people in those careers, to continuously develop themselves. And that's why we find the Japanese, for example, they've got the philosophy of Kaizen, which is like constant development. So what you did yesterday should remain in the past, and what you're going to do today should be better than what you did yesterday. And that's the whole purpose of those regulations. And I thought those were important points which we need to reflect on. And thank you very much.
Absolutely, Jaden. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Aisha, your hand was up again. I hope we take leave.
Yes. Thank you very much. The last speaker mentioned something that I've picked on. But what I wanted to say is about, she's mentioned something, not forcing, that we leave forcing our children because our parents used to force us to do things or subjects or courses that we are not of our own interest. Now, just to highlight, in UK, I think Sheikh Kayira or anyone, you will agree with me now, the government here is pushing more of apprenticeship, degree apprenticeships. One of the speakers spoke about not encouraging our children to do
Yes, I think that was Mustafa Kawe, yes.
Yes. I think it depends which apprenticeship you're doing. And because we're saying that it does not give you more skills, it is more focused on one thing, but it depends which apprenticeship you're doing or which course you decided to do. Now, when we push our children to do degrees, whereas the government is now pushing for funding for apprenticeship degrees, apprenticeship, we are going to find our children at a level where they are going to be asking, what is your experience as opposed to what is your qualification? That time is coming. The government is now funding more of practical apprenticeship as opposed to qualification. So we shouldn't, as parents, we should minimize, the idea of pushing for degree, masters, after degree, immediate masters as this. Otherwise, our children are going to be at a level where you're going to compete with someone who has been in the apprenticeship with experience, and yours is coming out of, chasing a degree or a master's. And the same years they graduate, the same years they've left school, one child is having already out of apprenticeship, they've got apprenticeship degree, and yours is still struggling to look for a job. And I think that time is coming. So we should be mindful. If there is an opportunity, if the child wants to go for apprenticeship, just talk to them through that and explore what kind of apprenticeship they want to explore, as opposed to forcing them to go for degree, because the government here is now gearing and funding more of apprenticeship. That's my own view.
Thank you very much.
Much appreciated. But that's my view.
Barakallahu fikum. Thank you very much. I can see Isa Makubi's hand is still out, is back up. I'll come to you shortly, Mr. Makubi. Just a quick one to say that I think we need to be strategic as we are thinking about career changes. We need to be very strategic in the sense that, for example, right now you might say you're going into mechanical engineering, but now you can see engineering is also moving. For example, it's vehicle automobile engineering. You cannot go now to put your emphasis on manual cars when people are already moving a lot into automatic. We are moving away from fuel into electric. So it would be that for a person that is forward-looking, thinking about career change, probably now the kind of engineering, automobile engineering that you should be looking at is already going into electric, because in the next 10, 20, 30 years, that's where we are moving. This whole manual, petrol-based or fossil fuel generated or run vehicles are going to be obsolete as a technology going forward. Of course, we are still having them for a bit, but if you're looking at 10, 20, 30 years to come, definitely I think the strategy now would be looking forward towards that. I was looking as well in terms of the money-making projects. Things like farming, for example, for me, has proven quite a challenge in some way, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. But you notice that you've gone through an education system, you did 14, 15, 16 years into education, you qualify, you come, you start working. Now you end up in farming, as I have sort of gone down that route. You come now to start looking after your cows, looking after your goats, you get to the market aspect, you find a Haji like Chigundu, the late Rahimahullah in Kisenyi, who used his goat marketing strategies. He sent all his children to schools. From schools, they started working. And then you end up now coming back down to become a farmer to do exactly what your father did, so probably the only value addition might be that you're coming in with contacts, you can do your marketing online, you can do the different aspects that you're adding, but you're almost coming back to do the same thing that someone did so well in their time, that you're going actually to come now in a much more competitive world, which means you will need further skills to be able to operate it. That's a challenge, but it's also food for thought for those of us. But looking in and coming in to do something that your father did 20, 30 years ago, and that's what you're coming back to do in a more competitive market, it just means now it's opening up options, that our thought process has to be geared towards how best we can deliver on that. Issa Makumbi, I come to you, and probably now we should be sort of wrapping up. Yes, please, Issa, go ahead.
I think people have been talking about the government policies or directives into this manual jobs, whatever they call it, scaling. The government has got two agendas, one for the working class and one for the elite. When they tell you those, you should think twice. I just want to know whether I could say any cabinet minister sending his child to those skills of apprenticeship, all those things that have been told for the working class. They usually change the goalpost. We have been talking about engineering that is being outdated. When you're doing robotic engineering, it has to be designed by an engineer. All those calculations has to be done by an engineer. So the only thing, they change the goalpost and change your know-how to fit in what is required. But people who talked about change, you do the job that you feel that you like or satisfaction. You might get a job highly paid, but you're not happy. You'll be frustrated and just dump the job. However, they said, for me, usually whenever the government says anything, turn left or turn right. You see an example when they told us about Euro, about moving out of Europe to get so many money, moving out of Europe, become independent Britain, be better. You find yourself in this, you find yourself in the mess. However, I would advise anybody, if the child is capable enough, should pursue the academic work, academic engineering, or academic jobs. But see the train where it goes, and then you follow that. If you're there, you can change. One has been talking about farming, wherever it is. When your animal gets sick, you run to a veterinary doctor who come to sort you out at the price. However, don't fear change. Life is continuous moving. You have to keep on upgrading so that you fit in with the society. If you feel that you're not happy with the job, try to move around or to go into another employment. You'll be happy and you'll be very comfortable.
Thank you very much, Issa Makumbi. And 19 minutes past 10 o'clock, we just have 9 minutes to the end of the show. Hayat Sarah Kazindaro Karijoli, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We thank you for the interesting program. Some people have been lucky to change their careers, but some people have been stagnant, and I come under that umbrella. As much as I would have loved to change my career, I wasn't able. Problem being that I lost so many years being underground, because not some of us were hindered by the time when we came in, and you had no papers, you had nowhere to start. And as time went on, you still were underground and you couldn't get the opportunity to do so. So I am of the accountant background, and it so happened that I have never worked for anyone but me and my husband, because we owned our own business. So I'd never been in actual practice as working with other people, seeing the competition and stuff. I've always worked for me and my husband. So migrating to UK became a bit difficult because I had lost my husband and I had a big little young family to look after. And there were all those pressures coming here, no papers, children to look after. And after like 6 years, 5 years underground, 1 year being processed through the immigration system and then getting the papers, I woke up and I said, yes, I'm going to try and change my career and maybe do nursing. So I went to college, registering in college when I was 48. And I did the levels, where my levels were put onto scales to see whether I can go into access. And I really did very well, because while I was I did was mathematics and English, which I did quite well. And the only thing that was quite demoralizing is when I went to the registrar and he looked at me and looked at my age and said, "Oh, 48. Well, we've seen people do it. Well, surely you can do it." It was like, now you're doing excess for a year and then you have 3 years to do in uni. And by the end of that, I think you'd be in your 50s. And the thing was, all my children were in uni at that time. And I was also trying to pursue a career. And things were not adding up. So I spent sleepless nights, churning stomach, very worried, because you can't be earning as much as you'd earn when you are studying, and you got 4 children to put into school, and things were not working up. And like I said, I'm one of those people who are still stagnant. I couldn't go for it because of the pressures that I had, children to look after, school fees to raise. And in the middle of it, I had to abandon it because I couldn't see myself furthering it. And then I got myself into trouble because I had acquired a student's loan and they were on my case. So things were really very, very, very bad for me. And I had to really go out of all that. But it was so stressful. And I was like, okay, this was not meant to be. I give up and just carry on looking after my children and furthering their education. But thank you. It was quite a very interesting topic to listen to, and it was a bit emotional for some of us. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Fantastic, HIJJA, and it's very, very nice to have you back. A quick message here in the chat room. I think if time permitted, children could have a degree as a foundation to empower them with the tools of self-learning, and then could choose an apprenticeship for purposes of settling into work. They can always draw back on those academic skills to adjust their work or future learning trajectory. I think that's the balancing act that we're talking about. Balancing act that Engineer Makumbi also did touch on. Definitely now, I think the journey is still on. It comes to a time when we find ourselves having to make all these difficult decisions, but sometimes probably you are happy with your career and you don't need to change. We are talking about those people when you get to a time and you start questioning whether probably it's time to sort of change your career. There are lots of things involved, lots of things that come in the line of that. And it helps a lot when you have conversations around consulting, not just rushing and jumping into, a process of trying to change when probably change is not necessarily what you need. And I think the lady there, the lady lawyer, did mention the 3 important things, especially involving, consulting widely, making sure you make an informed decision before you can make the move. And then secondly, using contacts. Very important point that she does raise there. 85% of jobs are given through word of mouth. So you can go and compete for all the jobs that you see out there, but 85% is recommendations. So you give a job to a person that you know, that comes in quite handy. So your social capital is very critical in whatever you do. And that's where it is necessary, at least within our own communities. Organizations like UMC now should be having a sort of a career guidance aspect to it, where we take it very, very seriously, where we can come in and say, this is where we want to be in 10 years. We need doctors, we need social workers, we need this. And as a strategy, we start imparting that information to parents. Parents now carry it and see who amongst their children fit that kind of bill to push into that direction. I think in countries like here especially, you see that people are able to pursue particular courses that would have been very difficult to do back home. Things like medicine back home really seems like it's something for the special ones. And yet I've seen people who have moved to, say, to the United States of America. They have done medicine and they did not have a background in medicine. And that I've found quite, interesting. Someone coming from, say, accounting and crossing into medicine. Very fantastic change, just like me jumping out of journalism and straight into the frying pan that is farming. It is not for the faint-hearted. It just means you really have to give it your all. I can only thank you very much for a very beautiful and interesting night. But Isma, I just wanted to have those 5 points that someone should take away tonight, just in terms of when they are making those career decisions. If we can have that clip, please, that should end our conversation, at least should take us to the very end. 5 points that you need to take into consideration before you take that leap. Isma, if the clip is ready, we'll just have it. But it's been a very, very fantastic conversation. Acknowledgements, people who have been very quiet there in the Kamori. Zuleika, I've seen you, ZN there, Issa Makumbi, Aisha, Habiba, Jaden, Naima Kayira, Mustafa Kaoya, Rahma, you're so quiet, we didn't get to hear from you. Adi Wembo joined very late in the conversation, but thank you very much. I'm sure you've caught the tail end of the conversation. NK from the very beginning, being there in Kamori quietly at work. Isma, if the clip is ready, I think if not, then I think we've gone 5 minutes to the end of the conversation. No, actually 3 minutes to the end of the conversation. If the clip is, oh, fantastic, it looks like it's ready. Let's have those 5 points to consider as we go into career change.
Before you make a big career move, like completely changing your field, and what career move could be bigger than that? It's critical, as you undoubtedly know, it's critical to research that new field before you make the switch. And in this video, what I'll do is I'll help you with your research by outlining the top 5 growing fields in 2022 for people over 50. And specifically, what I plan to do in this video is I'm going to tell you what the top 5 fields are. I'm going to tell you what I learned while I research each one of these topics. And then I'm also going to provide links to the data so you can check these fields out for yourself. So after this break, I'll tell you the top 5 growing fields in 2022 for people over 50. Welcome back to Over 50 TV. My name is Lou Reyes. Well, before the break, I told you I'd tell you the top 5 growing fields in 2022 for people over 50. Now, before I give you the top 5 list, let me make something perfectly clear. Any one of the fields that I'm going to be outlining here today, any one of these fields you can convert into a business that you own and that you run. You know, you don't necessarily have to work for a company or some other individual, and I just want to make that clear because that is a great option. And speaking of starting a business, I do want to let you know that I do have a free side hustle starter kit. You can get that kit by clicking on the link in the description box. The kit that I created, it just takes you through 8 very first steps of starting a new business. Well, now that I mentioned that, let's get to the list of the top 5 growing fields in 2022 for people over 50. Number 1 on our list is healthcare. I don't have to tell you the COVID-19 pandemic is wreaking havoc on the healthcare industry. The pandemic, yeah, you guessed it. It's one of the big reasons the healthcare field falls on our list. It falls into our list of the growing career fields category for 2022. And according to an article in CNBC, they said recent studies found 20 to 30% of frontline U.S. healthcare workers say they are now considering leaving the profession. And the nursing field, yeah, it's one of the segments of healthcare that's being hit the hardest. A Forbes article, it was published in November of last year. They estimate that there will be a need for at least 500,000 more registered nurses by 2027. If you want to enter that segment of the healthcare field, you're going to have a bachelor's of science or an associate's degree in nursing along with a license. But a career in nursing, yeah, I know, it may not make sense for you. But that doesn't mean that you should rule out the healthcare field entirely. There are plenty of other healthcare careers to explore, like physical therapist assistant. I want to make sure I emphasize assistant, administrators, and also medical and health services managers. You know, you may already meet some of the educational requirements, so it's certainly worth exploring this field because the healthcare industry, yeah, it's been growing for years, but more so now. If you have been thinking about changing careers, well, consider a field that has great short and long-term growth potential. Number 2 on our list, information technology. You know, information technology is on every list of growing career fields. And this, of course, is no surprise because IT has been a growing career field for many, many years. But the increased emphasis on working from home, Why, that's seen demand for software and app developers soar. To help meet demand for coders, boot camps where you're taught how to code, why, boot camps are popping up all over the place. In my home state of Ohio, for example, many of the local colleges like Case Western Reserve University and even Cleveland State University, which is in our downtown area, they're now offering coding boot camps. And also, if you want, you can learn coding online. So if you're thinking about a career change and if you're tech-oriented, why not consider taking coding classes online or at a local college? You know, in that Forbes.com article that I quoted earlier, the writer said the Bureau of Labor Statistics Occupational Outlook Handbook is predicting that by the end of the decade, the software development field will grow by 22%, and this means 300,000 plus new jobs with a median salary of over 6 figures. Now, before you dismiss coding as a career, and I know some of you will, consider what VantageAging.org says about coding. Vantage, by the way, they run a senior community service employment program here in Ohio. Well, the program that they run, it promotes the economic self-sufficiency of older adults who are 55 and older, and they do that by providing paid part-time job training and community service assignments. And I bring this up because what Vantage says about coding is this. Many job seekers, and I'm quoting off their website, many job seekers in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s have chosen to learn how to code because of a desire to grow their skill sets and change careers. Other older job seekers, according to the Vantage Aging site, they choose website coding out of necessity. For example, what they say is an older individual who works a labor-intensive job might need to transition to a less physical field due to their health, or an older adult caring for a spouse or a grandchild may need a flexible schedule. And I think coding is an option, and I'm going to include a link to the Vantage Aging article in the description box. Number 3 on our list is supply chain management, and I'd be surprised if you were surprised that supply chain management is on this list, on the list of the top 5 growing fields in 2022. Listen, after last year's lockdown, upended store deliveries, well, supply chain problems, they've been pretty much a daily news story. Besides fixing the logistical issues, well, filling jobs in that industry is important. It's an important part of the solution. And some of those jobs, according to Michigan State University, they include purchasing agent, purchasing manager, operations manager, and distribution managers. If you want one of these in-demand jobs, well, you'll need at least a bachelor's degree. And you'll earn a median salary of $78,750, and that's according to the Association of Supply Chain Management's survey report. That's 25% higher than the national median salary. Now, if you're interested and that money sounds good, but you're a little bit skeptical, I want to mention that Michigan State University offers a variety of 8-week individual supply chain management certificate programs. These are courses that cover a specific area of knowledge, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a link to their website in the description box if you want to learn more. Now, if you are still skeptical about entering this field because you're just wondering, hey, maybe I'm a bit too old to consider a job in that field, well, consider what supplychaincareers.com says about older workers. If you are over 50, they say, and if you're looking for a job in supply chain, you may feel that your age is a hindrance. We are here to tell you that you shouldn't worry. There's a growing need for older, more mature, and more experienced workers in many industries, and supply chain, they say, is no exception. Number 4 on our list is financial management, and it's on our list because this field is expected to grow by 15% over the next decade. And financial managers at Kipling.com so succinctly points out, and let me quote, they get paid handsomely to build long-term financial plans that help organizations achieve their goals by controlling risk, maximizing returns on investment, and deploying cash wisely. You know, when Kiplinger says financial managers get paid handsomely, they mean the median annual salary for a financial manager is just north of $122,000, which puts you near the top of the financial food chain. But before you get the opportunity to earn that salary at a finance or an insurance firm, you've got to meet some basic education requirements like having a bachelor's in finance degree or economics or maybe some some other similar field. And having a master's degree, well, it's a prerequisite for some companies. Now, I know this job may not be a good fit for some of you who are watching this video, but for those of you who do have the desire and the qualifications to work in the financial management field, I think this is a great field where you can live comfortably and you can be employed for the rest of your life. Last on my list of top 5 growing career fields in 2022 for people over 50 is statistician. You know, statistician, well, that made my 2021 list of top careers, and once again, this career field is making an appearance. And it's making an appearance because employment of mathematicians and statisticians, well, that is expected to grow 33% from 2020 to 2030, and that's according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, which also says this field's growing much faster than the average of all occupations. So what do statisticians do? Well, they basically collect, analyze, and interpret data. And for me, I think in another life, I was a data scientist, because I love analyzing and interpreting data. And I've used this passion for numbers whenever I researched a prospective business opportunity. So this skill, I believe, has good practical applications. But I'm not the only one who thinks being a statistician would be a cool job. The U.S. News and World Report 2021, their 100 best jobs, they rated statistician as the number 6 overall best job, the number 5 best STEM job, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, and they rated it the number 2 best business job. They also rated data scientist as the number 8 overall best job, the number 6 best STEM job, and the number 2 best technology job, which really surprised me. But besides having excellent growth potential, the average salary for a statistician is just north of $91,000. If you'd like to take a closer look at a career as a statistician, I'm going to put a link in the description box to GoBankingRate.com's list of 15 high-paying jobs that won't kill you. And for those of you who love sports, I've got a treat for you. Being a statistician, it could be a great way for you to get in the game. And I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the description box to a fantastic article titled Jobs for Sports Statisticians. I think you should check it out if you're interested in this field. Well, there you have it, folks. The top 5 growing career fields in 2022 for people over 50. Now, I'm expecting to get some comments.
That's a lot to think about. That's a lot more applicable in the United States and in the United Kingdom. Back in Africa, the situation might be slightly different. I should have added agriculture as a sector that is coming up and coming, and one that you can run back to and run very efficiently. Thank you very much for another very beautiful night full of interesting stories and experiences. These stories, these programs are just made by you, by your experiences. I hope to see you again Tuesday next week, inshallah, where the program will be coming out from a country that I'll be telling you once we get there, inshallah. Thank you very much. Hope to see you again next week. We appreciate your attendance and your ordinary and continuing custom. Keep it 75W Radio. Keep it Ummah connected. Hope to see you next week, inshallah. Thank you very much and have a very good night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.